You heard it from Carol just now. 2 dead, a high number of significant injuries from the fires. Firefighters continue to struggle to contain blazes in Pacific Palisades and Pasadena as well. What can you tell us about the conditions over the next couple of days and the current conditions, David, that are creating an instance such as this that is just so perfect for these fires to rage on?
These conditions are indeed very bad, very dangerous. The winds are powerful. The just regular winds are powerful, but the gusts are even stronger, and they're going to continue at least through Thursday. We may have a respite over the weekend, but there's the possibility of another windstorm settling in on Monday or Tuesday of next week, with no rain in between here and there. So essentially for the firefighters, what they are trying to do is steer the flames away from homes and away from infrastructure as best they can. But with conditions like this, there's only so much they're going to be able to do.
Tell us about the ground. So much when we are often talking about wildfires, be it on the West Coast or nearby vicinity. You know, David, we're also talking about what makes it more difficult is that the ground has been so dry. Was that the case in these fires?
Yeah, the problem here is that the biggest problem here is that Southern California has had virtually no rain since spring. They haven't had even a ½ inch of rain recorded in downtown LA since April. And so as a result, all of the vegetation in the hills surrounding the city is bone dry, ready to burn. And when you have an event like this, these winds blow from basically the deserts out to the coast. They dry things out even further, and they're a little bit warm as well, so the conditions become perfect for spreading fires. So for the firefighters, they're trying to douse things along the edges of the blazes, but you've got to understand that all these bushes are just bone dry and ready to go.
David, I'm wondering about structural damage at this point. It's one thing for a fire such as this to rage in an area where people do not live, as often does happen during fire season. We know that. But what do we know about how much damage has been done in the greater Los Angeles area and what firefighters have or have not been able to do to protect structures?
We don't know too precise details yet about how many things have burned. We do know that the number of homes that are in danger are well into the thousands. And we even had, for a little while this morning, a fire erupt kind of close to the center of the San Fernando Valley, which is a big, heavily populated area. There was a small fire that got going in a grassy area there, and the firefighters were able to get on top of it. But we're talking about many thousands of homes, quite probably, that are in harm's way. And we're also talking about thousands of people who have been evacuated. The last count that my team was able to rough together was something north of 100,000 people, probably more than 125,000. And they're all on the move. It's like a small American city, all being forced to flee for their lives.
David, one of the other aspects of this in a big way is what the utilities are up to or what they are doing to maybe help prevent even further fires. I'm looking at some of the players that serve Southern California. Edison International is down about 13% as we speak. Sempra Energy, which owns San Diego Gas and Electric, has been down as much as 3.5%, still down about 3%. They, from what we understand, I'm looking at our live blog, have started to shut power off in some communities. What are we hearing about utilities and their efforts to maybe help rein this in or at least control it from further spread?
So the utilities could see this windstorm coming. They have their own meteorologists, and they focus very intently on this kind of thing this time of year. And they put in place plans to shut off power proactively to areas that could be very prone to burning. We have a long history in California of deadly wildfires that have been sparked by power lines either falling down in high winds or getting tangled with tree limbs in high winds. And so the utilities have become very cautious about this and will shut down power when one of these storms approaches. They started to do that yesterday, and in fact, they're still doing it right now. There are fears among investors that a couple of these fires, maybe all these fires, are in some way tied to power lines, but that has not at all been proven yet, and I haven't heard anybody in authority even suggest it yet.
David, as I'm a Californian and I grew up with fires, it was just a fact of life, and the idea that you'd find ash raining down at certain points throughout the year, it was kind of a normal thing. Indeed, they've become more frequent and more devastating since I have lived there. But I always wonder about building and rebuilding in these areas that are at such high risk. We've seen insurance companies push back, drop coverage in some of these areas. But is this going to be the final straw in some of these areas, or do you think people will rebuild?
It's easy to say we shouldn't build in these places, right? It's like telling people on the East Coast, you shouldn't build right down by the beach because sooner or later a storm's going to come and smash that house to pieces. It's very simple to say that. It's very hard to do in practice. People always want to rebuild their homes. They always want to go back home. They have a powerful instinct to do that. And a lot of the folks being burned out of the Pacific Palisades right now, these are not poor people. Many of them will try to rebuild. The insurance issue, however, we have not figured out a way to resolve that yet. And I don't know how these homes will get insured if they do get rebuilt.
One thing I wanted to ask you, and this was certainly some of the footage we saw earlier today of as residents in the area were fleeing their homes, some of them were abandoning their cars, and it made it very tough for emergency vehicles to get to where they needed to be to fight this fire. Any update on what we're hearing about that? My understanding is that various equipment was coming through and just clearing the roads of these cars.
Yes. There were essentially bulldozers going through some places, pushing cars to the side and shoving them together. I saw some footage from one of the local TV stations last night where you had some lovely vehicles that were just basically crushed together because the firefighters had to get through there. I understand why people felt the need to flee the way they did, but this is what firefighters have had to do in response.